pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience and in the attempt to try to pull this together. But I think we are here. I think we have a forum, and we have some business that I think is important to look at. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
To the committee. We have a couple members that had complications in getting here. They have expressed interest, so we'll make sure, Sharon, that we follow up if anything's decided tonight and we get to people. Basically, we have minutes from April, which is hard to believe, but we, and Josh, I'll make sure you get this, but it's been that while. According to Sharon, she's been paying more attention than I have. But I can't believe, if anybody has a meeting that I didn't go to
No,
or anything.
no, this is the last time we met.
Yeah, we need to approve the minutes of Wednesday, April 12th.
So
Yeah.
moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. And if you would like to review them. And the most important, of course, is our staff updates. So John, Valerie, what's happening?
Do you want to go first? You can go
Oh,
first.
yes, it's have a busy spring and summer so far. I was out taping a lot. We did the Memorial Day wreath laying and the ceremonies. And then right after that came the flag retirement ceremony at the Sanford Legion Hall, Sanford Road Legion Hall. And the Boy Scouts are involved with that. I record that every year. Then there was the 4th of July parade, which I felt so bad for everybody in the pouring rain, but everybody stuck through, the spectators and the participants. We've had, as of right now, we've had 556 views of the parade on YouTube.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I recorded the Historical Society cemetery tour. I have not finished editing that yet because it was evergreen and I had the parade and all the other. That was the same day as the flag retirement. So I did the flag retirement and then I ran all over town going to 8 cemeteries. So then the end of June, I did Undressed at the Handy House, another historical society. They have a display of women's underwear. And they're going to have another, that was the lecture, and they're going to have another one on July 25th and then one at the end of August. And in addition to the display that's up there.
That also will be on YouTube.
It's on YouTube, that's finished,
Great,
the Undressed, yes. And I did the library meeting on a Monday, and the new children's librarian is running a pet photo contest, and they put, the kids sent in pictures of their pets, and that's all displayed in the children's room, so I took a little pan of that, and that I just put on too. So that contest runs until August 18th, so townspeople can go in and vote, look at the pictures of everybody's pets and vote on that. So that's a little filler. And in addition to the meetings, 4 meetings on Monday, Henry helped with 2 of them, and planning board last night, and so things are going good.
Yeah, and we also recorded the information meeting about the override last night too, right? Yeah, so we have a lot. There's a way to get a sort of a summary on the front of the website, because I know you can find everything, but maybe a summary if you missed the parade, if you missed, because the front page is what most people, it's a hard website to use.
Yes.
If you can put a little update for people.
Yeah.
These are interesting.
Highlight all the things
These
I've been
are
doing.
interesting things. I mean, we are one of the few towns that has women's underwear as a featured attraction.
And there were a lot of views.
Bustles.
I put that on, and then the next morning, there were like, I don't know, 20-something views. Everybody says undressed at the Handy House. They want to see what that's about.
I am not gonna say a word.
You have to keep it in context. We're talking about old
Yes,
dresses in an old
1890s.
building.
I just wanted to just chime in off of what Irene said about the promotion of the stuff that you guys do, and this brings up the whole thing about social media and stuff like that. I know you guys have a lot on your plate, but if there's a way to maybe do a Facebook page or something like that, to kind of even just, every once in a while, or when you're doing a meeting and you're sitting around and everybody's chatting or whatever during the meeting, just send out a blast on social media, this is what we're covering, or this is what we finished editing, and, where people can watch it, because I really think that's,
And people
That's-
forget.
you get the 500 views, imagine how many you would get, that's unsolicited, right? And I think the homepage is a good idea.
People forget.
That's a little more work to update, I think, but,
It's not bad.
Once,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not, it's not
you,
bad.
you do it.
Yeah.
You'll have
Yeah.
to show me how to.
There was a follow-up to the information meeting last night that you reported at the auditorium, the high school auditorium, and somebody sent an email saying, we had 60 people there, but it's up on YouTube, and make sure that you see it. And I think that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
remind people, because there was a lot going on in the community yesterday. It was hot. We needed to go out, but it's pretty easy to click on YouTube, so we'll encourage you.
I
to-
just put it on mine.
Okay.
I just
yeah.
put it up.
And actually,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have it as a bulletin board even on the channel, to say, hey, you can, if you're mobile or you're, out of town, you can watch it on YouTube or something like that, even just a one-page bulletin board where people can
And Valerie,
vote.
you do not have an aid for what you're doing, right? Except for a wonderful, magical, outstanding Henry.
Yeah.
Compliments. But
I know, I gotta
basically-
see if he knows anything about
Yeah.
these young
Oh.
kids know about social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah, it's gonna be his job.
But we'd hope to have someone to work more closely with you, because your schedule was very intense, but, okay. John, do you want to?
So I wrote you folks, and I also, about hiring a student. And after you guys all gave me the go-ahead, I sent a letter to the select board. And, like I said before, last week was kind of, no one was around for anything, so it didn't get put on the agenda for 2 nights ago. So it'll be on the agenda in 2 weeks, so hopefully it gets approved.
Great.
Yeah.
Will that student work with you this summer? Or
Soon as
is it
soon as she gets hired, she's
Yeah.
Valerie's met her. She's done a couple of
fantastic?
tryout meetings. She knows the school auditorium pretty good. She helped out on 2 or 3 of the graduations, and she's a real good person too. Good, good grades and all that. So,
And with regard to equipment, which has been your biggest
so.
issue over the year, is there any update on that?
So, yes, I think I shared this with you guys as well. We did purchase a server, and I ordered the server and everything that goes with it, and it should be in any day now. I ordered it 2 weeks ago. I got it in before July 1, and it usually takes 2+ weeks for all the stuff to come in. So,
Great.
we're almost there.
Any concerns, anything else? Or you're just gonna make a happy evening for us?
No, I don't have any concerns now. It's the waiting game on hiring Olivia and getting this server in. Because I want to get it in so we can learn it this summer, because
Super.
my schedule's not as hectic
Yeah.
in August.
It's been a
So
long time coming, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I had a
Okay,
question.
any questions?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah.
Is Olivia gonna be like a part-timer that you can use, like?
she's gonna
while
be
during the
just like
summer?
Henry. Yep.
Excellent,
Yep.
excellent, that's great.
Yep. And after summer too, like going forward.
Henry is not gonna be allowed to graduate. He should know that now. He was not being allowed to leave Westport High School, because he will be so needed in 2 more years. But
Oh, he
that's
can
okay.
Yeah.
work.
He has a younger brother too.
As long as he doesn't go away to college.
Well, I met his mother, I know she won't let him stay here for more than 4 years, so that's great. And it's wonderful to have a dedicated student who's really working with you. That's
It is,
really,
yep.
really important. Okay, well, the key issue for tonight is to bring us up to speed on this contract. I had hoped that it would all have a bow on it, be sitting nicely on the selectmen's desk in June to match our renewal date. But Renee's been in contact, and I have reached out. I've also communicated that we really are anxious to resolve this. But the letter that I printed out, actually it's the top of the email, basically went back to June, and he has not gotten back to us. He said he would keep working at this. But Renee, you've read this. Why don't you sort of summarize it? You've been dealing with our attorney who I think is doing a good job for us.
Well, I mean, we had laid out bullet points for him to take to charter, and as you can see in the letter, it's basically, dealing with the operating costs and the operating fees, and bringing that up 0.5%, and the $300,000 in capital that we're looking for. And I think, the attorney has communicated that effectively to Charter with little response. So I think we're kind of almost in a, I don't want to say a holding pattern, but we want to get a commitment from Charter that our requests are agreeable and we'll move forward. So I think that's kind of where we're at now, and hopefully we will get a response. The attorney has been diligent to try to get to them. Obviously, we're during the summer now. I don't think this is anything out of the ordinary in terms of, crickets from the cable company, right? So,
We don't want it to
plus it's
drag on.
summertime too, right?
Yeah,
So
we don't want it to drag on. You had the experience of 2 years, but
Yes.
you are in a very large city compared to
Yep.
Westport. I think that with all the changes, hoped, with the internet pathways, municipal light, however that's going to evolve. But what I remember from this letter is that the charter was saying, we'll give you whatever the customers provide, whatever percentage, sits there. But we're not talking about making a, big fee. This was $2,000-3,000. I think we were asking for $4,000. So I think there's places that probably as a committee, we need to say, no, we're not going to do that. But the lawyer's recommendation is you should not accept just the fee, the percentage fee that subscribers pay, because that will disappear more than likely, or change, or you don't know what it is. Money in the bank is money in the bank. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I would go down to 4 and stay at the, 300 in 2 bites, or try to get, a first year bite, and get that money in the bank.
Mhm. Yeah, so we're willing to hold on and to keep the attorney on account. And I think we have to maybe write that in a format. I don't know how we want Sharon to include it in the minutes. We may want to make a motion, but we do have recommendations. And I think we need to make it clear to the attorney that we're not up for anything. We're not going to respond to whatever offer to get this done. We're willing to hold on.
one of if you read this paragraph, which is the big paragraph, second to last,
Yeah.
he does mention in an alternative of bringing up the annual fee to 4.5% and then not giving any capital. So over the 10 years, we roughly receive the same amount of money. The danger of that, I think, and I don't think we want to touch that one, is that's 4% of their annual revenue.
whatever.
which if people are dropping off cable, their annual revenue may go down, in which
Yes.
case I could see why they would offer that up, but I think we stick to our guns and we say we need a secure funding mechanism of that 300,000 capital. I think we hold firm on that, and we say it needs to be done that way. So I don't know if you guys agree with that, but,
Well, just take the other side. If we felt there was a need, because our job is to advise the select board on next steps. But if we decided we thought it was important to get this resolved in the next number of months, 3 months, 6 months, something, would we be willing to negotiate? Well, our conversations previously with the lawyer were, we can all sit around the table and negotiate. That never came to pass. Clearly, Charter didn't want to do that. But is there any place here that we can say to the lawyer, there's some wiggle room for us? What do you think? Because I think we can stick with this. I think we have something we want, but it might go on.
well, again, in his last couple of sentences here, he says, I will, in the event that Charter insists on doing this license with no fixed capital amount, they will request 5% annual revenue over the 10 years to provide us with some cushion. For myself, I'm still not comfortable with that. I'm just, 10 years is a long time. Charter may not even exist in 10 years.
I think that's kind
And
of.
where does that leave us?
Cable TV.
Yeah, I think
That's why I think
it's
tonight-
risky.
Even though not everyone's here, we can make a statement and we can share that with the other members, but we can have that something for the lawyer the attorney to reference, because it's not as important right now from what you're saying to get this done as it is to get it done in a way that does continue to tap the best source of revenue. Bob, do you want to add to that?
Well, if in the
I might have read
negotiations,
it
I would
online.
I
Was it
would run
online
back,
or-
I would run back to our original ask,
CCU.
the 4% and the 300 capital in 3 stages.
I don't think I read this.
And I think the next step in the negotiation is to go back into the 200. He said they're not comfortable with capital, they don't want to pay any capital,
Right.
and which means they're not really paying anything.
That's right.
Essentially, the 4.5% is really being paid by the ratepayers.
Customers, yeah.
So, and I suppose from Charter's standpoint, they are giving us something. If they didn't give us anything, then they would put that 4.5% in the pocket, but they're not, it's not coming out of, in that.
The contract as it exists continues, is my understanding from
contract
Renee.
as is
Renee,
now.
is Fall River was 2 years and you had your existing contract contributing whatever had agreed upon. So we have to assume and inform the town administrator that whatever was committed to previously should be coming in.
I think that
I don't know
applies-
whether it comes in once a year or
that
whatever.
applies to the revenue stream. But I don't think it applies, I don't think they're gonna go back and say, okay, well now, just give us another 100,000.
Well,
Right.
we have a contract that says they need to.
So what happened in Fall River was, during the lapse of contract, the cable company was not obligated to pay the capital.
Right.
All right.
They were obligated to pay the operating revenue, which,
Which
was
they were
great, but,
collecting,
we wound up losing, I think, $30,000 a year for the 2 years that the contract was null and void. So without a cable contract, you're gonna lose out on the capital funding, because there's no obligation for them to give that to you.
It just
They
says year
gave
1,
it-
year
they-
5.
That's right, they gave it to you for the first contract. So that's the danger of letting this thing drag on.
Yeah, and I also.
without resolve, I think. I think, I can reach out to the attorney and kind of pick his brain in terms of his sense of this, and I can tell him that the committee met, the board met, and, this is one of those, ping pong, right? Throw it back in their court, and just say, the committee, the board is firm on, achieving some sort of capital funding. And I think that's where, that's where the attorney always said, justify your needs, right? And we did that with the presentation, and, they had received all of that, so,
And he said he sent that again.
yeah. Yeah.
We put that all together in the original ask, so they had that.
We
I
do
mean,
not.
I think I would go back and, it sounds like what was before them is the 425 and 406 in capital. That's what they're saying no to.
Right, the capital is the big part of that.
How did it
We
get,
don't have the final say on this, so what we are going to do is encourage the attorney to understand where we are right now, but we also have to encourage the select board to be willing to deal with this. And right now, I'm sure it's the last thing they're thinking
I was
about.
reading that too.
So if you read this letter, and I think the attorney may be mistaken, John, meaning John from Charter, and I spoke several days ago, and I gave him our demand for 4.25% gross annual revenue and 406,000 in capital. He's basically up that amount from what we requested,
yeah,
right?
that's
We
what I don't
requested 4% and
Three.
$300,000
Right.
capital. So I need to clarify that with him
Okay.
and say, that's not what we asked for. Be great if they came back and said, hey, you got what, they agree to
What
it.
were
I
we
mean,
getting
if
before? What
he
was
did
the last
ask,
year?
if he
The
did
last-
ask for the 425
Yeah, but
and
what was
the,
the percentage?
and the 4.
Yep, that's what he says, yeah, that's what he
If-
says,
If
yeah.
that's what he did ask for,
Yep,
then I think
3 point,
our drop back in 2 steps. The first one is go back to the 4% and the 3, which is what we originally drafted.
Mhm.
And if that doesn't go well, I would say the next step is 425 and 2. And the 100,000 comes in year 1 and year 5, like they did before.
mhm.
So, and then I'd get pretty firm around that number.
Okay.
Right, I agree.
what was the percentage the last time? 3.5 or 3?
3.5,
It was 3.5%.
yeah.
And I think if we can make a motion that we can put in our minutes, we can then follow up so that the attorney can be spoken to, but I think then we have to follow up. I spoke to Steve Willett, who was going to be away, said we need him to hear what our decision is so that the select board hears it. We can then go and, talk to them if they need, but we don't want them to all of a sudden say, well, we want whatever we can get as quick as we can get it. There has to be a path that everybody's on, I think.
Well, I think we should, the select board has sort of put this in our lap to do the negotiation. Okay, so this is, if people agree with my comment, then I would say this is what we go back to the attorney, is, in 2 steps, the 4 and the 3, they say, no, we're not gonna, we can't possibly do the 3, then you do 425 and 2, 100,000 in year 1 and 100,000 in year 5. And you go back to that, and then that, I would say, you stay pretty firm at that negotiation. So that's what our recommendations for the negotiation would be. I mean, this is being televised,
Well, we don't
It seems-
know what the next step is, so whatever anybody's hearing tonight is still, it's all in process.
These are our recommendations. Don't
And I think we
I
can,
don't like to,
we could assure the select.
negotiate on TV before we actually sit down with people, but
Hopefully, Mr. Maher is not watching us on TV tonight. We can remind the select board that we have been working diligently with an attorney to get this done, and hopefully we'll get it done. I think their help, if it gets dragged on, might be useful to have some kind of a letter from the select board that they want to see this done. But I appreciate you summarizing this. Sharon, have you gotten the comments? We have, some of this is in this letter.
I did, but I don't know if you finalized anything.
Yeah, we haven't, but, all right.
Back and forth.
You have a sense of what we're doing, okay. Are we ready, Renee, to summarize it? Somebody's gonna have to say something, or we're gonna have to give Sharon the lines from the letter. But basically, well, Bob, you've really created, are we willing to go with what Bob said?
Yeah, I'll second if you want to make that as a motion, Bob.
If you could-
I move that our recommendation to the attorney is that we go back and ask for the 4% and the $300,000 in capital improvements in 3 steps as we originally proposed, and that our fallback position should be, if that is not accepted, then our fallback position should be 4.25% and 200,000 paid in 2 increments, one in the year 1 of the contract and the second in year 5 of the contract. And that, we should say, that's our sort of, let's get the deal done position.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Josh, I know you haven't had a chance to review the contract, but we'll make sure you get a copy of it. I think you kind of got the gist of the meeting, because I would like you to vote.
Sure.
Is there any opposition to this motion or any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have,
Do you want me to repeat it, just to make sure I got it correct? Okay.
and we'll get this information out to the members that weren't able to be here today. And we will, once it's in a written form, Renee, you want to forward it to the attorney, I can follow up, just make me a CC on that.
And we should copy the selectmen on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Jim Hartnett also, so
Yes,
that he
yes,
knows
yes.
what's going on.
So,
Okay,
just
I think
clarify-
that's-
Can I just clarify that?
Of course.
Please?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's gonna be to recommend to the attorney to go back to ask for 4% and 300,000 in capital improvements in 3 steps. That was proposed originally. The fallback position is 4.25% and 200,000 in capital improvements, paid in 2 increments, year 1 and year 5 of the contract.
That's right.
Thank you, that's good. Now, we have at least the opportunity to move forward, we hope. And I think our meetings, future meetings, clearly will be based on trying to touch base with the attorney and see if we can tie him into the fact that we would like to be updated as much as possible. I know he can't do anything, he's pushing against marshmallow or something out there. There's no incentive, but maybe with just keeping pushing on it, paying attention, it'll help.
So Irene, you had a motion, you had a second, did you have everybody approve? I don't think you did.
I'm sorry?
So did everybody approve?
We did.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we had
Sorry.
all 4 voted for it, thank you. Okay, the other thing that came up since we last met, was a call from, Mass Access is a professional organization that pulls together local media companies, cable companies, and there's been work done to try to create legislation that would create a revenue source from streaming. I think I sent this information out. I wrote a letter, and I think I have some copies here. John wrote a letter to the legislature and my letter is based on a template. It's not based on a creative writing class or anything. But it
that my letter?
basically says that we would like this Joint Committee on Advanced Information Technology, Internet, and Cybersecurity to act favor on a bill that I think is being heard this week. I tried to reach somebody at the State House. The original letter was addressed to Honorable Michael Moore and Tricia Farley Bouvier, who jointly chair this committee. it has a very significantly sounding name, and the legislation, both Bill 74 and House 74 and Senate 34, are really an interesting approach, because they basically are saying diversifying revenue streams for local cable programming will not only allow the town Swansea that wrote this original letter and other communities to develop important local information and entertainment, but expand our scope to film more boards, do more, and build on what we've been doing. The idea is to generate income from streaming. And I would like John and Renee, who are much closer to how this might be done, if you have anything to add to it. But basically, at this point, it's legislation being filed that will have to be reviewed, have to be voted on. So we're just at the beginning edge. So if it makes, if it begins to move in the legislature, I think we need to educate more people about this. The select board should probably be better informed about it. But John, did you get a chance to look at it any more about how this would work, streaming, revenue?
There wasn't much. I read both bills, and there really wasn't much on either bill, so there's not really much more I can add.
Yeah, it seems to be.
I have no
very
idea how
rare.
that would be done if you're streaming.
Well, that's gonna be, something that they're gonna need to decide on how that's gonna work in terms of internet services. And I think that the concept, at least from a cable/internet provider, would be to take the amount of individuals that are signed up for subscribers for internet and put a dollar or a percentage on their cost for it, and return, as they do with cable TV, return those monies to the towns involved. That would be the simplest way. I would think that they would do it similar to the way cable TV works. However, I do know that they're looking at other streaming services as well, that aren't necessarily cable provided, either cable internet or something like that. So I'm not exactly sure how those will come into play in terms of like a Netflix or those other streaming services, how they would allocate those funds. And I don't know if that's actually listed in the bill at all, how that would break down. It probably is something that once it moves forward, they probably would go to a subcommittee, I would imagine, and iron out the details in terms of that.
And I didn't have time to really dig into the time it takes to get one of these people on the phone, but I think we can ask our rep, Paul Schmidt, to look at it. It's important if this is a viable revenue source. And I also think it's relevant to what's happening with this municipal plan, so that they have some idea that there's different avenues being looked at. Mass Access is a professional organization. You're not a member, we're not a member.
No.
Is it an expensive organization to?
No.
Why don't you get us information so that we come together? That might be something useful, because they're the ones that initiated this advocacy and probably worked with this legislative committee. So if we could continue to stay on top of this, I'm just sending a letter that goes in as the big pile of, we really care about this. John's done one, and I think, or has one that he's like to do, and we need to go back to the town and say, it's not, people are trying to deal with the reality that subscribers are going down, and we're not seeing any way to deal with that. Okay, so now you're aware of that, and you're aware of the business that we have ongoing, which is to hopefully push hard enough to get this negotiation done. We need to think about meeting again. I'm not an advocate of meeting unless there's business to be taken care of, and waiting on the contract has been the major business. But John, do you feel that a monthly meeting is important for you right now, the things you're dealing with?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
No, I can, whatever, I can keep you guys informed on my monthly report.
I would like to hope that by the end of August, we hear from Charter, but I think that might be unlikely. Is the committee willing to meet in sometime in August if we got more information from the attorney? If it's not our regular date?
We could, I mean, we'll be here, so.
Okay, all right, so I will let you know if it makes sense to meet. John, you keep us posted. August can be iffy if we don't feel that there's any decisions, and then in September, we'll come back again at our regular Wednesday night meeting to see where we are and what we need to do, okay?
Because you don't need a meeting to implement the servers and all that stuff at the high school.
I do not, no.
He has had some requests for use of cable funds, resources. This is his mysterious bucket that we get different numbers every time we ask for how much money has been accumulated. We've gotten different numbers at different times, but that money throughout the last 10 years has always had possibilities, and I think the last time the cable was asked to use it, it was about Chromebooks for the school, and that was turned down because that has nothing to do with what we're doing. But occasionally, because there is a tight budget everywhere, John becomes a source for maybe he could do something for the schools. We haven't had any direct requests on that, correct?
Word of mouth,
Word of mouth, but
Yes.
nothing definite.
nothing in writing asking for money, but I'm sure it's gonna come soon.
Okay.
And it's unrelated to PEG,
Yeah.
so.
Well, it's,
So it's an easy answer.
yeah, my
Let's hope.
understanding is that where the Cable Advisory Committee is responsible for auditing that, and I don't mean auditing in the technical sense,
Yeah.
but that he is the administrator of the program, we're the ones who, look at both his performance and also the expenditure of funds and things.
I think that could be a really important discussion in September, because it's agencies that are part of the town really report to the town. You know, the personnel board, the town administrator, and we're kind of on the edges of getting reports or anything. We don't know, when a budget was determined, we don't have to approve it before it's approved. So maybe we could talk about your budget and decisions and find out what's there and really do as you're
I
talking
mean,
about.
just for open discussion, I mean, you don't have a checkbook in your pocket, right? This is,
Right.
the treasurer has that money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the town administrator is usually involved if you have anything that you, bigger or newer, that you want to do.
Right.
Go ahead, Renee.
So I think Bob brings up a fantastic point about how the funds are accessed, right? So right now, the select board has to approve all of the purchases from our funds. I would think maybe we can request that we're allowed to sign off or at least approve those purchases as they move forward. Select board doesn't know what a server is versus a regular computer. I don't know if that's something that we can
Well, I think
request through
Is-
the town administrator, that, you know, because I know it, like in Fall River, and I'll use them as an example, the school committee has to approve the purchases of all of the cable access equipment. And it's usually presented by the chief information officer, who has to go before a committee, a subcommittee on technology.
This committee evolved differently. It evolved as a government service, and then it was recognized that it really provided great service for the school, and they expanded. So the original board, of which I think Steve Ouellette was a member, but others, was expanded to include representation from the school committee. but there's been never any clarity about who's making decisions or how decisions are made. Mostly just requests. And my understanding, and even the committee, before I got on, John talked to me about one of the members wanted to bring in consultant help, and that had to do with, are we doing the job the best we can, and how can we do it? But the staff was never the resource for that. It was always, we've
And
got
I'm
a
not
new
saying
idea.
we wanna micromanage what
No, no,
you
no,
guys
no.
are doing,
No,
but I do think it might be in our best interest
I mean,
for the funding.
I think that would make it
I
more.
think that some of the capital expenditures out of that fund is, I think, the item to, because the town meeting approves your budget, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so the town meeting approves his budget, but that step of approving a budget is not the step of funding it, right? The money, the town meeting approves a budget, the funds for that come out of the cable.
The cable resources, yeah.
fund.
Or making the recommendation of what to
Right.
present at town meeting.
So that it's a, once, it's sort of, that's his operating budget, but the capital expenditures, because we have a contract in which the cable company put capital funds into an account, plus we have the reserve of what, because we run something in which our costs are less than our revenues. What that fund has grown. So,
But the fund exists, and 2-3 years ago, the original installation of fiber, the 200,000 was
Exactly.
taken from
Yeah.
the cable
And
reserve
that's
fund.
the kind of oversight that
I
I'm
was on
looking
the
to
committee.
do.
And there was no discussion anywhere. It popped up at town meeting, and there was some kind of decision. And I'm not saying that was a bad decision. I'm just saying that that process, I think, should be something we begin to look at in September and say, how are all these things working so we're ahead of next year's?
and it's, this is not, the lack of clarity is in this is not unique to the cable advisory committee.
Understood.
Josh and I see each other at the Council on Aging meetings monthly, and we have a really tight treasurer, and there is lots of clarity if you ask, but you have to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't know what in the world that line is all about. But I think our involvement in saying we want to ask and we want to know is real important. So that, we do have an idea of what we can begin this committee to look at in September. And also staff. I think it's really important you were saying, what is staff doing? Do we understand that John is really working and he's not just playing and having a good time down there? We know Valerie's working, but.
Because we
Glad to see me all over.
Yeah.
we are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, so we have duties to report back to them.
Right. Great. It's a good discussion. Well, thank you all for being involved. Thanks, Josh, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll have a joyful August if we hear from Charter. We'll complain and yell and scream if we don't, but hopefully we'll get this contract resolved, because that would make me feel good.
Are they gonna, did they accept any of our, I know they rejected some things, but
I don't think they're dealing with the small, so-called smaller items, they're dealing with the money. And if we can get them to move on that, probably other things. But there was no clarity, and when we hear back from the attorney, we may decide, and that's why I've asked you to really look at how we could do a hybrid meeting. I think it would be important to have the attorney join us, if just for a brief amount of time, if this is still in process in September. I think we really need to hear how hard he's pushing, how much he's being ignored, where we might get some other help and assistance on all of this.
My guess is that the Westport Charter contract renewal is a small
On the
part
floor somewhere.
of the, it's definitely not at the top of.
Well, we have to do something
Charter's
about
fine.
that, right?
The attorney did say that the representative from Charter basically covers the entire northeast region.
Yes.
So it's, like everybody else, everybody's taxed to do more with less. However, I think at least we should keep putting the pressure on.
Well, we have a good attorney, and he's knowledgeable in this area, and he represents a number of communities, so we just need to get this brought
You
to
have
their
to keep
attention.
knocking on the door, right? That's what our job's all about. And if we do it in a way that, I think we made some clarity tonight, what we're gonna look for as a bottom line. I think that'll help the attorney, so thank you. Thank you all.
That sounds like the lead into a motion to adjourn.
It does.
So
Amen.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those in favor, I can hear the vibes already. All those in favor, please say aye.